Yes.
Hello and welcome to StratNews Global. I'm Nitin Gokhale, and with me is a very special panel which is spread across the globe. First of all, let me introduce Venktesh Shukla, who is in the United States. He is, of course, a well known entrepreneur, and he is the partner in a firm which also looks at many things which many people will know, but we'll just introduce his company. Joining me from London is Manoj Ladwa, and from New Delhi, Dr. Vijay Chauthaiwale. He's in charge of BJP's Foreign Affairs Cell. And Manoj, of course, he's the chief executive and founder of India Inc. Group, which is in London, well-known NRI in London, and of course, a great India lover. Venktesh Shukla, as I said, general partner in MontaVista Capital in the United States. We are in different time zones. It's early morning in the United States. And so, Venkatesh, let me start with you. Good morning.
Good morning, Nitin. Thanks for having me on this show.
No, it's a pleasure. And in fact, I want to start with you that the COVID-19 pandemic, we are on Strat News Global calling it the Wuhan virus, the Chinese virus. But whatever you call it, that pandemic has had a huge effect across the spectrum on economies, on health, infrastructure, and of course, communities. So, as somebody who's involved in, the NRI community, who is a leader of the NRI community in the United States. How have you worked during this crisis? What have you done to mitigate some of the sufferings of the community, the NRI community, and your own community at large?
Yeah, let me start. You see, with a sort of high level observation. This crisis has has put a lot of emphasis on expertise and science and medicine. And in this country, when people think about consulting experts in these areas, it's no surprise that a large number of them tend to be Indians. So whichever channel you are flipping, whether it's CNN, whether it's Fox, whether it's MSNBC News, everybody's favorite expert tends to be some Indian doctor or some Indian correspondent. So it's not just Sanjay Gupta at CNN, but also Lalit Jha at not sorry not Jha, Dr. Jha at Harvard, and on, or Seema Verma, she's standing right next to the President Trump. So it's a matter of it's a matter of sort of we get vicarious satisfaction in seeing that this is the most defining crisis of this country. The country is relying on expertise you see of desis all over, and it's a matter of immense satisfaction to us. And it's not just the national news channels, even in local news channels, when some counties announcing some new measures here to contain this, and the chief medical officer of that county happens to be another desi, and sometimes someone that we know. So it's a matter of immense satisfaction that way, that whether it's universities, whether it's doctors, whether it is media, Indians are playing, you see, an oversized role in terms of setting policy, communicating policy, and communicating, you see, what to do about it or critiquing it. So that has been, you see, a very, very big thing, you see, for us Indians here. The second thing that you brought up, it's been really, really hard, not just on the students, but Indian students, but especially those who are hoping to get internships here during the summer, or who are hoping to get a job, and also those who are on H-1B visas and got laid off. I mean, companies left and right is here laying people off. So here there are people, and there are a large number of those people who don't have a job, who don't have a source of income. They lost their health insurance, and now they are stuck in their, wherever they're living. They don't have money to pay the rent or buy the groceries, and they cannot go anywhere. And that has been, you see, I've helped some students like that, because one of them, you see, wanted to go back to India, and luckily India started this service where flights, you see, where people can come back, but it's really, really heart-wrenching to hear of those stories. And luckily, you see, India has started those services, so I think people are going back now.
Right, but you must have also helped. Before I come to Manoj, one question quickly. Indian community, of course, great pride, as you mentioned, in various important jobs and important positions that they are in the United States in this fight against the pandemic. But also, you must have helped a lot of these students and people who are in difficulty. The Indian embassy would have sort of reached out to various organizations, associations. Just
Right.
give us a brief idea of how that has worked.
So that so this assistance has come in the shape of two, three different approaches. One is, of course, raising funds, so that, you see, we especially in the initial days, raising funds, you see, to feed those people who were the hardest hit and had no source of income and had not received the government assistance till that time. So fundraising campaigns for that one was that. Second one was just going to these collecting food and volunteering at places, you see, where they're distributing food. Those two things, you see, where in the initial stages, that's where the emphasis was. And now, see, the emphasis, after that, we started seeing the similar kind of a need, you see, in India. So a lot of us have organized to send money to India also.
Well, that's great to know. I'll come back to you, but let me now move to London and to Manoj. Manoj, apart from being a very prominent leader in the Indian community in the United Kingdom, you also run a magazine and you write regularly. Your magazine runs, very incisive articles, and you've talked about this crisis at least a couple of times in a cover stories on your magazine. So, what is the sense that you get living in London? How has the United Kingdom dealt with it? And then, of course, the Indian community dealt with it.
Thank you very much, Nitin, and thank you very much for having me on this show of yours. Look, the UK seems to have crossed the peak. It's suffered close to 40,000 deaths, and therefore only history will tell whether the UK has dealt with the crisis well or badly. But it's been tough. It's been unprecedented in every single way, and I know that the word unprecedented has almost become a cliche in these times. But I think the one thing that has shone out, and I'll come to the Indian community specifically,
Sure.
but one thing that has come out within the UK has been the immense community spirit that has been shown amongst people of all faiths and of all backgrounds. Notoriously, in the 1980s, Margaret Thatcher said, "There is no such thing as society." At the beginning of this crisis, Boris Johnson, in effect, contradicted that, and he said that there is such a thing as society. So, in many ways, it has reposed a lot of faith in what communities are and communities should be. And in particular, I think the Indian community has shone through beautifully and brilliantly in all sorts of ways. We account for only 2% of the UK's population, yet over 10% of all healthcare workers in our NHS are of Indian origin. So it's a disproportionate number of people from our community are on the front line of this battle against coronavirus. Day in, day out, I continue to hear all sorts of stories from friends who are doctors and friends in the healthcare system of the hardships that people are going through, the way in which the doctors and healthcare workers are working so closely together. So I think that's a great testament to the National Health Service. And let's not put too much of a fine point on it. The Indian community is many ways, just like in the US, and we've heard just now, the backbone to the National Health Service.
That's great to know, Manoj. Like in the United States, also quickly the contribution and the community feeling or the help that the Indian community would have given to stranded students, to tourists, to patients. Just tell us a little bit about that, because I'm sure you're involved in that in a big way.
Will be a case study in itself, and something that will be read about and talked about for years to come. The Indian community has helped in so many different ways, from assisting with distribution of food. There's some 1.8 million people in the UK that depend upon food banks, and therefore a crisis like this has created all sorts of problems for people. And you have organizations like Seva Day, Friends of India Society International, the BAPS Swaminar movement, lots of mandirs and gurdwaras who have been constantly creating resources to not only make food, but distribute to all communities across the UK. Seva Day itself has had over 2,000 volunteers on the ground day in, day out, working to ensure that no one goes hungry, especially the elderly and the vulnerable. So again, this is a huge testament to the work that they've been doing. Specifically on Indian students, yes, there have been some problems, some significant problems, and organizations like the Indian National Students Association, INSA, have played a sterling role in reaching out to them, providing them with accommodation. I've had numerous calls throughout this period about people looking for accommodation. So our Indian hoteliers, our fabled Indian hoteliers, have been opening up their hotels in order to provide accommodation for these stranded students. So it's been, again, a great experience, and also, if I may say, a great learning experience for me as well. I thought I knew my community, but seeing all of this, there's a lot more to learn and to see and to experience. And I feel very, very proud that in this moment of crisis, we've all stood up.
It's an immense contribution, I must say, and I think I'm sure you'll continue to work with the same zeal and same commitment in the days to come, because the crisis is not yet over. Hopefully, it will get over soon. But let me come to Vijay Chauthaiwale, who's as I said, the head of the Foreign Affairs Cell of the BJP, and a great network that he has amongst NRIs across the world because of the work that he does. I just heard one announcement today, Vijay, about OCI people being now allowed to fly back to India, or at least get the access to the flights and if they want to travel back to India. So you must have worked tirelessly. I'm told that you worked tirelessly behind the scene to connect people, to get students to the right people, get them access, whoever's stranded everywhere. Just give us some sense of what kind of network you have used to do all these steps that you have taken so far.
Thanks, Nitin, for inviting me here. See, some of the crises which our diaspora was facing was real, as described by both Venk and Manoj, that they were short of money, etc. They were short of food for many cases. Many of them, their hostels were closed by the university, so they were literally on the road, and they had a problem of even accommodation and spending night somewhere. And our community has worked very well to coordinate with them in concert with our embassies and consulate. But then there were a lot of emotional support were required in this hour of crisis. I distinctly remember a case of a schoolboy who has gone to somewhere in not so very close from Paris on a student exchange program. And he, even now, he is staying with a French family as an exchange program. And he is stuck. Now, naturally, French family was not accustomed to uh, be very friendly with this guy, and unlike our Indian families, so this guy was feeling very lonely and actually depressed. So he just needed someone to talk to him, to tell that, okay, you don't worry, if you have any problem, I will take care of you. And though that French family, to their credit, never said him that you need to leave, even though the tenure of the program was over. They used to take good care of him. So some small things. Similarly, a lot of students, they didn't have car and they couldn't go to pick up groceries, and then their parents would give me a distress call saying that my son doesn't have a grocery, even he wants to cook, and then one phone call here and there used to make a lot of difference. It was possible, of course, because of lot of devoting people across the globe. One military captain was found positive in Nigeria, ex-military person who was working there locally, and again somewhere at a remote place from Laos. So Lagos, rather, sorry. So he needed some support. So I need to make few phone calls. Even the doctors were there. So a lot of such things I kept doing it. One of the things which you mentioned was also kind of a heartburn for people, because the NRI people who had their kids born especially in the United States, and therefore they are citizen of US and they are OCI card holder, they were not allowed so far to accompany their parents, even though they were minors. And again, in those cases, some of them, like Venkatesh has said, that they were H1B holders, they lost their jobs, they were eager to come back, but they couldn't come back because their son or daughter is minor, and they cannot he or she cannot accompany them. So this relaxation has made a lot of difference, and it has soothed a lot of anxiety of the people. Not all OCI cards are allowed, holders are allowed, only in the 3 or 4 categories. One is of the minors. Second is the major students, but whose parents are settled in India.
Right.
Third is, of course, the many cases, one spouse is Indian citizen and other spouse is OCI holder in that cases, and only fourth case is of the medical emergency. So not OCI holders can come, because then we are virtually opening the floodgates. So these are restrictive measures, but they are also, they will go a long way to join the families together in this hour of crisis.
Well, that's very good to know, because I've also, like you, I've had some calls, some emails coming. Can you help here? Can you help there? And then I think the role of the Indian missions, Venkatesh, I want to come to you, has also been immense in terms of organizing flights back, giving counsel, giving maybe coordinating all these issues. Just give us a sense, if you have really worked with some of the Indian Foreign Service officers or the Indian mission officers in United States.
One thing uh, one thing that's very obvious is that over the time that I've lived in this country, the overseas missions are becoming more and more service oriented to the Indian community here, and this change has been dramatic in last 6-7 years. I think since this government has come to, I don't know if it has any coincidental with that or there is any specific directions to that, but what I notice is that the consulates and embassies are truly becoming a service organizations. I mean, they're no longer those haughty officer-like kind of a thing, doing a favor to people. And that cultural shift is pretty significant. And this thing also came through in this crisis. I think one Air India flight was going from here on May 9th, and you can imagine. Probably it can accommodate only 200, 220 people, and there are probably thousands of people who anxious to go. And the job of deciding who gets to go is on these poor, the consulate people. Each story, yeah, each
Yeah.
story is more depressing than the other. And how do you choose? right?
Right.
They decided to conduct a lottery. But even then, the more extreme cases, I think I'm happy to say that in even the more extreme cases, when we reached out saying that iski halat bahut kharab bichare ki, kuch karo
Ji.
iska, so they were able to accommodate them. But it's not an easy job to do.
I agree. And I think you very, very rightly observed that this cultural shift has been very beneficial to all Indian citizens or even NRIs the world over. And I think one of the contributing factors to that is one of our panelists here, Vijay, who's actually worked very tirelessly to create this network with people in different countries. So the credit must go to the organizations that he's created in different countries, and of course the government has also reached out. I think the MEA has been working tirelessly, the Ministry of External Affairs. But Manoj, what has been your experience? I mean, now that the pandemic is maybe we are coming out of the lockdown in India, elsewhere also life is slowly coming back to, I won't say normal, but new normal. What would be the, let me look ahead a little bit and say, what would be the effect of the pandemic on let's say, the travel of people between India and the UK, for instance, or other countries? What's your sense?
Firstly, I'd like to just echo what Venkatesh just said. In my experiences in London and the Indian High Commission here, they've been absolutely fabulous in the way in which they've worked tirelessly to coordinate in sometimes the most extreme and most difficult of circumstances. Yes, certainly they are understaffed, and that's an issue that I'm sure over the months and years to come, India, as it globalizes, will look to address. But there's a new can-do spirit, and I found that they're very well integrated within the Indian community, which wasn't the case before.
Yeah.
And that's helped a lot. Specifically now to the issue of what next. Firstly, I want to touch upon the point that Vijayji alluded to briefly about the stress and anxieties that people have faced during the pandemic. But after the pandemic, there will still be, and there will perhaps be more circumstances where people will require support, mental support, for the difficulties that they faced. And that's where I think, however important food and money is, but that social support that our community has so well demonstrated that it can provide is something that's going to be very, very important going forwards, not just for our community and for the vulnerable in our community, but for all communities as well. So some sort of institutionalized framework is something that I'm certainly going to be discussing with our community leaders here in the UK as we go into the new norm. As far as
yes,
sorry,
go ahead.
As far as travel is concerned, well, those at the highest levels have been affected. For instance, we in the UK have a new Indian High Commissioner, Gayatri Kumar. She is currently posted in Brussels as ambassador to Brussels, and so she's been waiting for the opportunity to come across to the UK and take up her position. Similarly, Sir Philip Barton, the UK designate High Commissioner to India, is still in the UK, I believe, and he's been waiting and actually called me a few days ago to ask me, when are the first commercial flights to India going to be opened up? Unfortunately, I didn't have the answer, but I said, I'm sure it's soon. So people-to-people contact and people-to-people interaction, however good these types of conversations are and these mediums are, and certainly they've been brilliant in keeping people connected. At the end of the day, travel for business, travel for family, travel for society, and travel for well-being generally is important. And therefore, the sooner we can do this in a safe manner, in a sensible manner, the better for everybody.
Yes, of course, that will be something that we'll have to look out for and plan as we come out of this crisis, really. But Vijay, you have created a network of communities abroad in many countries, not just in the West, but in the East as well as in Africa. How well has that network really worked? I mean, you gave us a couple of instances, certainly, but give us a little more sense of, how community leaders and people from all walks of life must have contributed to the emotional well-being and the support that has been provided to Indian communities abroad.
See, the crisis of this magnitude could not have been addressed by a single organization or a single community leader. And the way majority of the Indian diaspora works abroad is through the communities, through the organizations. And those organizations are very powerful and they are very well networked with their members. So essentially what has been done by people like us and also all the community leaders and also by the embassies and consulate is to bring these organizations on the same platform and appeal them to work together. And through these organizations, people have come. And there are enormous amount of mobilization of volunteerism during this crisis, especially, for example, even in countries like those in the Middle East, where literally thousands of people are waiting to come. It was the job of community organizations and their volunteers to help people to fill the registration forms. Then also many of these volunteers have helped embassies to scrutinize these forms so that those who are in priority should get especially those who are in the medical emergency, etc. Because embassy simply doesn't have that much of the manpower.
Sure.
And even on the airports, so that the people come with all the documents, people are keeping social distance, they are medically checked, everything. So a lot of volunteerism has been seen at every step of the government efforts also. And that is something which we could do it because of the network already available. For example, now in US, the Seva International is helping a lot of local communities who are in distress. Not only people of Indian origin, but also the local communities. And
Right.
they could garner the support of a couple of hundred Indian diaspora organizations, including big organizations like Art of Living of Sri Ravi Shankar and the BAPS and many other, and also small regional organizations. And they are doing wonderful job in doing helping out the local community. So it's a very cumulative effect of the strength of our people, and basically the nature of our people to serve the people, which is a part of our culture, which is a part of our sanskar, and that has helped a lot in this hour of crisis.
Indeed, in fact, all the three of you have narrated that experience, and a common thread, as I see it, is the community feeling and the purpose to serve the community has come out in this crisis. So the COVID-19 experience of the diaspora is indeed very commendable, and I think they have faced the problem, the crisis, extremely well. I think we all have to face it together, and we have faced it together. I think the Indian government has taken the lead, but I think the support from both sidelines and from behind the scenes has been provided by the NRIs, the community, Indian community, and of course, as I said, networks created by the overseas friends of the BJP, where Vijay has made immense contribution. So let me thank you on that note, all three of you, for joining me in this discussion. It's been an insightful discussion for me, and I'm sure for our viewers here. Venkatesh, thank you very much for joining us so early in the morning from the United States. Manoj, a busy man in London, but has found time to join us here. And Vijay, of course, was somebody who supported the initial idea and got us all together. So thank you, all of you. And we hope to be back again for some kind of a discussion on the future of the Indian community post-COVID in some months or so. But thank you very much for the time being.
Thank you.
Thank you. Namaste.
Namaste.